Miscellaneous minds, never explaining the minds. Devilish grin for my alias, aliens who respond. Peddling sin, thinking maybe when you get old you realize I'm not gonna fold or demise. I don't smoke crack, motherfucker, I sell it.
What is going on, everybody? This is the Miscellaneous Minds podcast. I'm your co-host, Boomer Gato, the cat that hands you your mandatory back. And to my left over here is the main who's the narrow, the man that makes the fat stacks. Together we form the dynamic duo that won't die. Deadly ideas, brother, and spicier content than your girl's only fans.
What is going on, everybody? Before we get into tonight's topic, please make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and with that, let's get right into it. There seems to be a bit of confusion with a lot of the casuals about what's going on. They're calling it a conspiracy theory, and I'm not here for it, because if you pay attention, this one body has always done this. So let me give you guys an example. A lot of people are saying after Archer Beterbiev beat Bivol for the undisputed titles, Archer Beterbiev is essentially being stripped by the IBF, and a lot of people are saying, see, there it is, conspiracy. They don't want Bivol to be undisputed. Conspiracy. They're trying to set it up for a million and one other things, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. They've done similar stuff with a couple other things. They did it when Canelo was trying to stay undisputed, and the IBF stated, you must fight, and I apologize, I can't remember the gentleman's name. Much lower ranked fighter, not really a big name in any way, shape, or form. And people were saying, who the hell is that? Who the hell is that? Why should Canelo get to cherry pick this nobody and not have to fight someone like a David Benavidez? A lot of people kind of went over their head because they didn't even discuss this, but Usyk was also stripped of the IBF title. So let me put it to you guys this way. If you pay attention at all closely to boxing, the IBF is the one organizational body that does not play when it comes to its mandatories. Scully, I just remember the guy's name. Canelo was supposed to face this guy named Scully, didn't face him. Anyways, point being is the IBF is the one organizational body that does not play when it comes to their mandatory fighters. And again, listen, sometimes you will get fighters that unfortunately for the boxing community, the hardcores, the casuals, that you're like, who is that? Why should a Canelo face this guy's Skull or Scully, whatever, that nobody knows about? And they start blaming it on Canelo, or they start blaming it on Usyk, or they start blaming it on Archer Beterbiev. It has nothing to do with these guys. The IBF just don't play that game. If they say you have to fight this guy, they give you a very short period of time and saying get a contract together and you fight him. And if you don't, they strip you. They strip you. So when I see people saying, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. No, my guy, the IBF just don't play those games. And I feel like a lot of times when the box community starts putting all these stupid conspiracy theories together, they just completely skip over the fact that it is always the IBF. It is the only organization that thoroughly enforces their mandatories. I can't remember the other name right now that Canelo faced. Do me a favor, look it up real quick. He was forced to face him I believe right before the Caleb Plant fight. Really unknown guy. But essentially what happened was Canelo faced this guy. And again, it was the IBF mandatory fighter. And a lot of people were saying, see, there's proof. Canelo's dodging the David Benavidez's of the world. And he's facing these random guys that no one's ever heard of. It's because the IBF forced him to. They said either you fight or you will be stripped. And at the time, Canelo was trying to go undisputed. And because of that, he was unfortunately forced to go up against him right before the Caleb Plant fight, so that he could then become undisputed. And at that point, it was when he became undisputed, therefore, creating the legacy that Canelo wanted to create.
John Ryder?
Nope, not John Ryder. Different guy after John Ryder. Anyways, so again, this is just one concept. This is just one example of the IBF really going through and saying to everybody, to the Usyks of the world, to the Canelos of the world, to the Archer Beterbievs of the world, you will face who we tell you to the mandatory, or we will strip you. And listen, they strip every single time. Every single time. It has nothing to do with conspiracy theories, my guys. It's all about who the IBF states you shall fight, otherwise be stripped. And again, listen, I would have loved to see Usyk versus Fury 2 for an undisputed title, but it's not going to happen at this point. Usyk has been stripped. That's why we now have a Daniel Dubois who is champion. That's why in a lot of these cases, even though we'd like to continue the legacy of undisputed fight, you don't get it because the IBF don't play those games. Now, what do you think about that, my man?
Listen, man, it's one of those things where everybody or everything is a conspiracy if you don't know how things work. From a boxing political standpoint, mandatories are the very unnecessary evil that should happen in boxing. If you don't like the idea of a boxer cherry picking, guess what? The mandatory clause is that perfect thing to put it in there. Now, granted, it's not 100% perfect. I understand that somebody like a Scully for Canelo Alvarez, completely out there. It's not gonna change anything. Canelo Alvarez is still gonna be the champion, but at the very least, it adds a little bit of fairness to somebody that otherwise wouldn't get a shot. At least have a shot against somebody that is the champ. Now, granted, look, it's not gonna a mandatory is not gonna be 100% for sure rate that they're gonna win. But if we disclude the IBF, the only reason we're including the IBF in the discussion because they seem to be the most strictest when it comes to time limits. But again, other organizations did force the hand of a couple other people. I believe it was the WBC that actually forced the hand of Bernard Hopkins to fight a nobody, to which Bernard Hopkins got criticized for it. And even he said, look, it was either this or they were going to strip me. I had no choice in the matter. Yes, it was the WBC that did that to Bernard Hopkins. And yeah, he admitted if they weren't going to fight me, they were going to strip me. And I didn't want them to do me like they did Joe Louis way back then. Even then, a mandatory doesn't always mean that they are a nobody. If you go back in the later golden era of the heavyweights, and in I believe it was the 1990s, Lennox Lewis, believe it or not, was a mandatory in IBF, believe it or not. And guess what? Lennox Lewis eventually did win that. I think he had to sue Mike Tyson to do that, and it was a long lawsuit journey, but still, he did eventually get his mandatory shot. And you look at Vander Holyfield, who again had to fight using his mandatory clause against, believe it or not, Lennox Lewis. I don't remember if he won that one. I want to say yes, but look, just because they are a mandatory fighter or that they're a fighter that is supposed to be the mandatory for the champion, that doesn't always mean that it's a bad call. That being said, even if they were a nobody, at least adds a little bit of fairness into the boxing world. That look, if somebody they can get a shot against the champ, and the champ has to adhere to that, or guess what? They're going to be stripped. They no longer hold claim to that belt. So at the very least, it adds a little bit of fairness. But to the uninitiated, it's confusing because they're trying to keep the fan favorite down, our favorite boxer that has right to claim the belt. It's like, cool. Each belt, you do realize, has its own governing body and technically its own roster, its own ranking system, and whoever is the top challenger or somebody that is in the mandatory contender spot, you don't think it's a little bit fair to be top rank in that specific belt's ranking system and you aren't promised a title shot? You don't think that's the least bit unfair? If anything, more of these mandatories, I don't want to say need to happen. They need to have that system that we have now. Again, it's not a perfect system, but at the very least, if we're going to be at least a little bit transparent of who gets a shot or not, a mandatory is, contractually speaking, one of those ones that beyond money adds at least a little bit of fairness to who gets a shot and who doesn't. And the fact that people are saying it's a conspiracy, we already know, okay, either you don't watch it or you don't understand the rules of boxing. Quite plainly, simply.
Listen, man, focusing in on the IBF, I found out it was Ivani Yildirim, by the way. He was the random mandatory for Canelo Alvarez that everybody criticized Canelo Alvarez. But again, it was literally his IBF mandatory or they would strip him. And the next two fights that he had after that, Billy Joe Saunders, he picked up that title, and then Caleb Plant. So he literally needed to fight Ivani Yildirim. That being said, listen, the IBF is notorious for enforcing, and you can even make the argument that essentially robbing the fans of undisputed fights. But listen, that's besides the point. I am here for the IBF enforcing their mandatories because, like this man said here a second ago, if you're number one for years, and this has happened with the WBO and the WBC, there's fighters that have been number one for years and years and years that have not gotten a title shot. So the way that the IBF handles it, I am here for it. I am completely here for it. If you are number one on the IBF roster, you should absolutely get a shot at the title, even if you're not as famous or a high profile or so on as the guy that holds the title, because it potentially opens up for that person to become as big or if not bigger than that title holder. So stop yelling conspiracy theory. Stop making all these dumbass excuses for people. It has nothing to do with any of these guys. Usyk didn't dodge his mandatory. Canelo Alvarez wasn't, looking to dodge Avani Ildrum. He beat him, I think it's like 4 rounds. I can't remember the exact, but he got him out of there pretty fast. Artur Beterbiev isn't looking at dodging his mandatory. It has nothing to do with that. The IBF is just very strict. Start looking into things before you guys start yelling conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory has nothing to do with that. Enforce the damn mandatories. We'd have much more excitement in that. And listen, maybe to a certain degree, you'd even get more W's, which would look great on the resume. Now with that, make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and
until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you in the next one.